Key point on TV3. We're live on TV3 Ghana on Facebook, DSTV channel 279, all across the world on 3news.com. We start off with a conversation that never seems to go away: corruption. And over time, we have been measuring the impact of corruption by perception. So you have the Corruption Perception Index, Afrobarometer survey. What the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice charged this week to depart just a little bit from the norm was to try and now measure the real bribe taking, as in the actual corruption instead of the perception. So you talk to people who have paid bribes, they've admitted that they paid bribes, and to which institutions they paid bribes to, under what circumstances they paid the bribe. Because sometimes the process and the whole procedure is made so frustrating such that you would have to necessarily pay bribe to be able to get processes that were supposed to be fast, be made fast, because it will be made so slow. Now, we'll talk about the circumstance. We'll talk about the trend analysis. And really, what should we be doing differently? Because we know our problem. The problem of corruption has been with us. In fact, former president said it's as old as Adam. But what do we do going forward? Because it's robbing us of resources. CDD from 3 years ago put out some over 9 billion that we've lost as a result of corruption. This particular charge report says some 5 billion has been lost as a result of corruption. That could have fixed the roads in your community. So you're watching me now. That clinic in your community, that area that you don't have electricity supply, that women would have to deliver with torch lights and mobile phone lights. That's all they have. But this is Joseph Whittal. Joseph Whittal is the commissioner of the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice charge when they were presenting the details of that corruption report, actual bribe-taking institutions report. Take a look.
We have long nursed the desire to move away from perception to reality. The product of this survey is a combination of the lived experiences and views of people on corruption in Ghana. In other words, this survey has married perception and experiences together, the first of its kind to be conducted by state and other constitutional body charged with the measurement of key governance and development indicators such as corruption and ensuring integrity in Ghana.
Justice Yoni Kolende, as well, Supreme Court judge, also had a few things to say about this, because the judiciary was also captured in there, in the rankings. Let's take a listen to him.
I can say without fear of contradiction that the threat posed by corruption to our future is so obvious and frightening that we cannot afford to pretend about its prevalence in spite of some very laudable efforts at mitigating the scourge, which is practically invading every facet of our lives. If we fail to prevail in our fight against corruption, it is fast draining the public purse, it's creating barriers to economic development, decreasing effectiveness and efficiency of public services, increasing transactional costs, undermining equity and fairness in our society.
So that's Justice Yoni Kolende, and this was just very important that he was there, made that point. I sat through that ceremony because the judiciary was captured in there as well. And over time, we've had the judiciary being captured in a number of these surveys. There's always that defense. And a lot of reference is made to, for instance, the exposés done by investigative journalist Anas Aremia in time past. But I've been joined in studio by Dr. Adam Bona, who is a security analyst and CEO of the Security Warehouse Limited, and he has had close shave and also working relationship with the various security agencies, not just the Ghana Police Service. So he knows what's going on in the Immigration Service, for instance. Dr. Bona, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Alfred.
Let me welcome Honorable Andy Kwame Apiakubi, who is a member of parliament for Asante Achim North and a private legal practitioner as well. Apiakubi, good morning to you. Welcome.
Good morning, my brother.
Great. Now, before we get into the conversation itself, now I want to show you the rankings as per this report. The top 10 most bribe-taking institutions in this country. This is according to this report by the Commission on Human Rights and Restorative Justice. Take a look at it on the screen there. So that's what you have there. First is the Ghana Police Service, 53.2%. And look, I'm sure this doesn't come as a surprise to many of you. The Ghana Immigration Service, 37.2%. Ghana Revenue Authority, that's the Customs Division of the Ghana Revenue Authority, 33.6%. Lands Commission, 32.4%. Driver and Vehicle Licensing Authority, DVLA, 29.5%. And that's where a lot of people raise questions about technology, for instance, because DVLA, over time, they've tried to digitize the process and improve, in fact, reduce human interest or, as it were, experience or interference in the process. But still, they are in there. They are number 5. Then the 6th, you see there, is the Passport Office. Passport Office has also tried to put in measures to digitize the process, make it less human involvement, but you have it there as well. So can technology eradicate guru boys in the system or bribes? Judicial Service, 22.3. National Intelligence Bureau, 21.2. That's former BNI. National Road Safety Authority, 17.8. Ghana Prisons, 17%. Now, what's of concern, Dr. Bona, I'll start off with you, is the security agencies that have been captured in there. But before that, seeing this, how do you react to the details of this report, specifically with the security agencies that have been captured in there? Doc.
Well, good morning, Alfred. Good morning to our viewers and the Honorable MP here. Well, I am not surprised, not at all. I'm not surprised at the findings. And also, if you ask me, I would say it is strange, but probably not too strange to find most of our foremost security agencies, especially in this day and age of terrorism, to find the foremost intelligence security agents also being captured as one of the most corrupt. But it is good. Let me congratulate the SHRAJ
and the Ghana Statistical Service,
the Statistical Service, and the collaborators, those who came together. I think it's a novel. I mean, this is the first time we've had state institutions who are this bold to conduct, surveys to highlight some of the ills we already know in our society, if you ask me. So, for instance, if you take I want to take from the Ghana prisons. How did the Ghana prisons come in this? But you and I know that we have had situations where ex-convicts have actually, come up to talk about, situations where they might have paid some money to, some prison wardens to be able to, all sorts of substances,
in there.
get into the prison. How do these substances get into the prison, if you ask me? And so as far as I am concerned, I am not surprised at all to have this. It looks like this was an exercise. They went out to do some form of confirmation to test and see whether what we've been hearing, whether it is true. If you take the National Intelligence Bureau, it is an open secret. I mean, in the past when, I brought goods that entered the country through maybe the Ghana, the Tema port, or you travel. I'm sure anyone who might have traveled, you get to the airport and you would have somebody who has some radios or GOTA, accost you and tell you I'm a national security operative and he's looking for a £10 or a $10 or, RMB, depending on which country.
And they say it so boldly. These days,
and they don't care.
They will reveal their identity to
and
you.
they don't care. Then you have the Ghana Immigration Service also. I've seen them actually come out to attempt to deny, this, their ranking. And I say, well, you cannot deny it. During COVID, through an executive order, the borders were shut, but people were going in. And I have some immigration officers who sent me images and, information about how much citizens were paying to get into this country and out of this country. And, MPs who probably from the border areas complained, some of them even wept. And for me, if you ask me, I would say that this findings, and if you take the Ghana police, for the Ghana police, I will say that it is an open secret that and sometimes ourselves, we push the money on them. I have had police officers, you are there and someone is giving them money, they don't want to take it, and then they force it on them. Just yesterday, even though this has been published, I had come and I was in town returning, and for some reasons, I think I missed the traffic light, the red. I think, I'm not sure how it happened. But the police officer walked to me. He hit on my car, I rolled down my glass. And he told me, didn't you see the light? And I said, no, I didn't jump the red light. So then he observed who I was. But even that, he attempted to ask me to give him money. Then I said, did you just ask me? Then he walked away.
So
for me,
you at that point, you did not offer to.
No.
But he demanded, even though you had run through the red light.
Yes. Well, I couldn't tell because I think I got a bit distracted. Okay. And so mine was that he had the discretion. He could have just said, caution me, tell me, well, can you be observant? Because then it was just me he stopped for some reason because we were following each other. But he walked to my car and said, so I was wondering, how come those at the back, you didn't tell them they jumped the red light, those in front, the car in front of me, you didn't. But then you walked up to me, but I didn't want to argue. I just said, well, I didn't observe it. And so then he looked at me and, when I raised my head, he noticed who then he walked away. And so mine is that it is difficult. You would hear that bail is free. I mean, I'm sure my co-panelists will tell you how often their constituents would call them to tell them that there is an issue, is gone to court, and sometimes their constituents would ask them to give them money to go and pay for bail. Honorable Bebois.
It is not even
and so
we in practice
okay.
away from criminal practice because of prosecution, from prosecution, because they want to detain your client, although you may have made an application for bail, and most of the time, if you find no reason why they should resist your application, it brings frustration to you, even as a practitioner.
Thank you. And so mine is that the current dispensation, the current IGP is putting in a lot of measures to ensure that bribe taking and corruption within the Ghana Police Service comes down. But you see, the truth is that we've got to be very honest with the situation. If we are honest with the situation, it will be one of the surest way of dealing with the canker of corruption amongst, and it's so worrying that you have some, some of this, most of them, you would say, most of the security agencies, most of them, you'll find the Ghana police, you'll find immigration, you'll find prisons, I think you'll find the GRA, right? GRA has some component of security, the preventive side. They are there. And so if you find most of the security agencies in the top 10 the National Intelligence Bureau, all of them are there. Alfred, what I would say is that we need to deal with this thing head on. We need to deal with this thing head on.
So I'm going to come to the measures because, to be honest, this is a problem we know. The conversation this morning, we're going to focus on what we should do differently because we've been at this fight against corruption for all and God knows how long. I've been joined as well by Honorable Kweku Rickett-Hagan. He is a member of Parliament for Cape Coast South, former Deputy Finance Minister, joining us well. So Rickett-Hagan, good morning. Welcome.
Good morning.
Great. Now, Mr. Bona, that scenario you painted with your experience is actually captured in the survey. Most bribes are paid at the direct request of these officials. So 6 out of 10 bribes are paid to public officials are requested directly by those officials. So that's what, for instance, the police personnel who came to you, 59.4%. Now, the other bit is that in the rural communities, bribes are paid with food and drinks in exchange for a public service. And that's where the concern is. So, Honorable Apiakobi, this has spread so much that even in certain communities where you cannot give cash to get public, you see, the emphasis is on public good, the public service that you're already paying for, you have to bribe your way to be able to get that public service, or you would be frustrated such that if you do not pay, you're not going to get it at the time that you need it. You are a member of Parliament. How worrying is that for you?
Very worrying, my brother, if you ask me. And I am very surprised at the driver licensing department.
That's DVLA.
DVLA just coming this high. Because I never expected DVLA to feature that high because I thought that they had done so well.
They've done very well.
Digitization in the passport office. When the passport office has been so digitalized. And yet they still manage to find room for corruption. That is amazing. I'm not surprised about the police service and I'm not surprised about the court system because it happens. And I'm a practitioner, so I feel it and I know it. So I won't run away from it. But for me, what has not happened is the issues of sanctions. We have talked about corruption all these years, but people who are even convicted of corruption walk the streets free. People intervene because of political interest and they are left off the hook. So we have enough legislation to control corruption. Don't tell me we have to go through enactment again. We have enough legislation, but it is the commitment to what we have done that gives us the values or otherwise. If you look at the criminal laws, we have enough of even sanction systems in the laws. But people come through prosecution and somehow either they are left off the hook, they are given sentences that does not befit the crimes committed, or somehow even after conviction and sentencing, somehow there is a prayer for mercy and people are left off the hook. I think we have come to the crossroads now. If we want to make sure that our system is cleansed, then we must also go the full length of the law by enforcing the laws, making sure that people suffer for what they do wrongly, and then all of us probably will have a corrected, mindset. Otherwise, Ghanaians, we will talk. Now that they have published the report results, we will talk for 1 week. After the week is gone, let me commend the collaboration between the two state institutions. They've done well. This is an innovation, first of its kind. But I will encourage them to do more. Those who are very high up, let's see whether we can have institutional cleansing. People must suffer for the pain they give to all of us. But unfortunately, they have published the police. It appears the police is only just an institution without personalities. There are people who are in it who are causing this pain. And they must be identified and must be put before the law, and the law must work on them. I'm not happy with just the publications and the discussions and the ending of the discussions at the doorstep of the law. Let the law be seen to be working.
You're a lawyer, so let me stay on this because you talk about the sanctioning regime. How punitive is the sanctioning regime to serve as a deterrent? Because look, we've done these surveys and people have been caught, as you're saying,
yes,
in direct acts of corruption. Exposés have been done by investigative journalists. We know the problem. What is wrong with the process?
Like I told
how
you,
punitive it is.
Like I told you, myself, as a practicing criminal lawyer, I had to give up criminal practice because the frustration was too much. Because you have to pay your way even though you are doing advocacy for a client.
Wow.
And I thought that was not right. So
you have to pay
in
your
order
way.
to save myself the pain, if I go to court and I think that I'm not being served the values of law, I get hurt. Although I will not be the person in the box going through trial, you find a client who is being denied bail just because he's not able to pay. That is painful. You go to court and you find a prosecutor with the motive of seeking conviction, even where he has enough evidence even to support the case of an accused person, because he's not capable of paying. I mean, some of these things drove me away from criminal practice. But as it is now, we have identified an institution as scoring something like over 50%. That is serious.
Indeed.
It is very serious. So almost more than half of the matters that they handle, they are influenced. And you can't have the police system doing this. And again, if you look at how important that institution is to the whole nation, security, you cannot sell security for anything. So if police administration is recording this figure, then they must sit up. And we must do proper investigation. And unfortunately, some of the times you rely on the same institution for the investigations. So we don't get the results properly. And indeed, political influence also comes in. I'm happy that issues like this will not attract politicians talking across issues. We should be together fighting to save our nation and fighting to ensure that we leave a legacy to the future generations that they can be proud of. Otherwise, the way it's going, if it continues like this, then we are all heading towards doom.
Let me begin at this point. So we've had institutional reforms, attempts to try and improve institutional structures to be able to deal with acts of corruption. In fact, technology, we are on a digitization drive. One of the objectives of trying to digitize the processes of public service delivery is to reduce the interference of human beings or human involvement in the process of delivering public good. We've seen this done. It's a process that's ongoing, but it has not addressed, at least per this survey, the corruption in these institutions. For instance, the Honorable Kubi talks about DVLA, which I know. They've put some measures in place, passport office, to try and digitize the process to reduce human interference. But we've seen them captured in there. So beyond the technology, what should we be doing to, for instance, instill some integrity in the people who are, because technology is only a complementary factor. It cannot save the problem, can it?
Thank you very much. Good morning to you, Alfred, and good morning to my fellow panelists and my brother this morning. And good morning to the good people of Cape Coast and your viewers. I think I'm not sure that what was published surprised any of us.
Indeed.
Corruption has become endemic in our society, from the top to the bottom. We've talked about all the things that my brother has talked about, that we have tried to use technology, to reduce the human interface so that corruption is committed by human beings, not by machines, hopefully.
Indeed.
And that will obviously then improve things. But what is lacking, you did ask, is leadership. We must lead by example. And that people are doing what they are doing. I mean, you look at the police, and if really you can't trust the police, you know, that police is a corrupt, you know, institution. If indeed you cannot trust the courts, and the court is a corrupt institution, then what chance have you really got in this society when you get into any kind of trouble? People are probably in prison needlessly because, as Honorable said, you know, they either couldn't get someone to help them, and it is right. My brother said, I mean, MPs are being called to go and bail people and to get people out of, you know, police cells and all that. But the problem is with leadership. This is a country where we have set up a special prosecutor for God knows how long, about 5 years. Mm-hmm. But you cannot actually pinpoint to any serious work that they have done that will become a deterrent. See, these things is not just about even doing something, but to be able to deter people. Machines don't deter people, they complement. But people are able to circumvent machines to do things. I mean, how many times have you been to places where they will tell you the network is down? The network is down. It's a form of corruption. People don't want systems to work so that they can circumvent the systems to do things. I mean, even the system is down itself. It's an opportunity to make some money out of you. Somebody will say, oh, when the system comes up, take this. When the system comes up, call me. You know? So there are all sorts.
I know sometimes when the systems are down, but when you pay, they're able to do it.
Yeah, that's exactly.
The systems resurrect.
Yeah,
they resurrect with the payment.
So yeah, so these are the things that are happening, and it is not only people demanding, but we are also given, because it's become a culture of that we all understand. That look, the police people that we are blaming for bribes and all that, you'll be in in traffic where the police have mounted, you know, their checkpoints, and there's a lot of traffic simply because people open their window. Mm-hmm. Nobody, the police probably doesn't.
They are dropping things
and they're just dropping things. You know, I mean, so I asked myself, so what are these people checking? I mean, if you are a criminal, you make your money and everything ready because you know that once you give money, nobody will even ask you to roll your window down and all that. So we are all involved. But leadership is the problem. We are not doing things to deter people. People look at the corruption that goes on in government, goes on in politics, goes on in government agencies, public service and all that. And they ask themselves, why can't I do it? You know, it's like you hear certain things and people said, I mean, I'm paying taxes, for instance, and you are hearing things of corruption and reckless expenditure and all that in government. Then you ask yourself, if they are doing it, why can't I do it with what I'm doing? Because these people are basically not interested in me. So I've got to also look after myself. So it's become a situation of everyone trying to look after themselves, everyone trying to say that they are not paid enough, and therefore they should find other avenues to make money. People don't want their time to be wasted. Therefore, they offer. A lot of the bribes these days are being offered, not asked.
Because of the frustration that the
Absolutely.
system will give to you.
Yeah.
So you are accessing a public good.
Yeah.
You want it as fast as possible. The system can be fast, but probably because of one reason or the other, it's been made slow.
Absolutely.
So you are asked to grease the process so that it would move faster.
That's exactly what is happening. So these numbers should not, probably it's more than the numbers you are saying. It's endemic. Corruption is endemic in our society, and there's no leadership from the top to create some kind of a deterrent where people will begin to see that, hey, corruption is not really a good thing. You know, look at what is happening at the top. Look at ministers going to jail. Look at members of parliament, you know, being taken to court. And these things are there. And cases are being brushed under the carpet. And you have this famous saying in Ghana that is quite laughable, that if you accuse someone of corruption, they say, where is the evidence? So it is always about you don't have the evidence. And corruption is hard to prove unless you really catch someone in the act. So when you don't have evidence, you dare not even go and accuse somebody when you clearly know that these things are going on. So it's from top to bottom. What needs to be demonstrated is the leadership, the determination to reduce corruption. There's corruption everywhere in the world, but to reduce corruption in such a way that it doesn't impact, because economic corruption has a serious impact on economic development.
Indeed.
Corruption in, overvaluing projects and all these things,
So, for instance, the GRA Customs Division.
Yeah.
I mean, what was taken as bribes could have gotten into the national kitty.
Yes, and be able to use for development.
So
we probably wouldn't be, to IMF if sudden to be asking for about 2 billion, when probably corruption cost us far more than that.
In fact, in 2017, the CDD put the cost of corruption to us as a people at 9.6 billion. Right. Then this Shraj report is, and Ghana Statistical Service World is putting at 5 billion within the period that they did the survey. So, I mean, these are reported cases.
Yeah.
The unreported ones, you have said, runs into billions we cannot even quantify.
Without,
But does the quantum matter? Because, I recall COP Kofi Boakye spoke on TV3 many years ago when these surveys started coming and ranking police number one. That's bribe takers. He says, why shouldn't we also be spending time talking about the politicians and others who will be accused of taking bribes in millions? Because the police take 1 Ghana, 2 Ghana, 5 CDs on the road. Does quantum matter? And let me also acknowledge Vitus Azim. He is an anti-corruption crusader, former executive director of the Ghana Integrity Initiative, the local chapter of Transparency International. They've done a number of surveys. And I did this trend analysis. I'll show you on the screen. Mr. Azim, good morning to you. Hello, Mr. Azim, can you hear me? Hello?
Hello?
Yes, Mr. Azim, can you hear me now?
Okay, I'm hearing you.
Great. Now, when you were the head of the Ghana Integrity Initiative, the local chapter of Transparency International, actually put out some surveys as well. That's the Afro Barometer together with the CDD that ranked the police number one. But does the quantum matter in terms of, for instance, these surveys that you do? That if you're looking at, according to the likes of COP Kofi Boakye, the amounts involved is almost negligible. The police are only in there to survive, as against what the politician or any other civil servant will take as bribes. Mr. Azim.
I don't know. The sound is really bounced. I'm not getting well. But if you're saying that what the police get is just nothing compared to what the politicians get, remember that every day I travel on the Kasua Road. 5 a.m. the police are standing there and stopping all unregistered vehicles, stopping all commercial vehicles. I don't know how much they are getting. And they won't leave there before 5 in the evening. That is a lot of money, even if it's 5 CDs that they're taking per driver. And you've never heard them take any person to court because of infractions of the traffic regulations. The politician may take one amount in a day or in a month or even in 3 months. But then when the policeman also accumulates what he has been collecting on a daily basis, it's difficult to say that one is higher than the other unless you know the actual situation. In any case, whatever the case, that is not an excuse for anybody to collect bribes or get involved in corrupt acts.
And I'll take the ranking now, just to establish something, that this is something we know, Mr. Azim. What should we be doing differently to stem this canker, which, according to this survey, is endemic? Because if you look at the age bracket of the people who are likely to pay corruption, ages of 25 to 34 has the highest bar in this bar graph. So younger people are more likely to pay bribes than older people. And with the prevalence of bribery, 29.9% people aged 25 to 34 years are the age group most vulnerable to pay bribes. And the prevalence decreases steadily if you go into, say, 50 to 64 years. But if you have this young bracket, that's 25 to 34 years, that certainly should be of concern to us if we are charting a path into our future. Mr. Azim.
Yes, you see, we need to go back to our Constitution. The Constitution has given so much power to the president, and by implication, his ruling party, to appoint virtually everybody that matters in this country. So even when immigration is recruiting people, you get a whole list of 350 people on protocol being sent from the presidency to recruit. Those people that you are sending, you don't know whether their relatives, family members, party people, or they have even paid money to get their names onto that list. But again, going back to the Constitution, when you see one person having served 4 years, taking over 300,000 cedis home, and I'm a junior person working, and for 30 years, I'm not likely to even get 100,000 as my pension. I will be tempted to look for other ways of accumulating money so that when I retire, or even as I'm working, I can also put up a place where I can lay my head. So those are some of the things that we need to look at. We need to go back to our Constitution and review it. And no politician is willing to go back to the Constitution because it is in their benefit. So that's one thing. The other thing is that the independence of these institutions to carry out their work without any interference from the government of the day. If the IGPs can be appointed and disappointed within a week because the president doesn't like him. There was one time the Director General of Ghana Health Service was appointed acting for 1 month and was removed and another and replaced. When you do these things, you come in and you think that you owe your allegiance to the president and the ruling party, and they can bring their children and say, employ these people and you have no choice. You see, so these are some of the things. It's the Constitution, the law that we have given ourselves to run this country that promotes corruption. And if we want to deal with it, we need to go back to the Constitution and related laws. Virtually every law says the president has appointed, and then the board of directors, a majority of the bodies, and all that. Why should we have a Constitution that gives all those powers to that president? How do you make even the so-called independent institutions, tribe, electoral commission, the president, the judiciary, the president appoints the people that matter?
Zazim, finally, everything rises and falls on leadership. But what is leadership not doing to address this situation, which we should be considering going forward? Because we've seen attempts to digitize processes of the delivery of public good to the Ghanaian people to reduce the incidence of bribery and corruption. But this is still ongoing, at least with this charge report is ongoing, despite these technological interventions and the process to digitize. What should we be doing again?
It's clearly, what we should be doing is clearly spelled out in the National Anti-Corruption Action Plan. Number one, the education that we are doing with your programs. Number two is the prevention. We have the laws, we have the institutions. It's the third stage that is giving us a problem. We are not properly investigating credible allegations of corruption and sanctioning people that are involved. And sanctions can be administrative. They can involve the recovery of illegally taking money, and they can involve prosecution. That third layer, we have failed woefully, and that's our problem. And when you fail to do the third part, you promote impunity when it comes to corruption. People feel like I can do it and go free. No, but what are you going to do to me? After all, my father or my party is in power. So when you declare results, people can just go and take over state properties and say that our party has won. And no action is taken against them. So until we are able to do the third part, we will not be making any headway. If you do the third part, you make corruption very, very unattractive. Who wants to be sent to jail? Nobody. Who wants his house to be seized by the state? Nobody. So if we are bold enough to do that, we should be making headway.
Azim, thank you so much for your time this morning. Vitus Azim is the former executive director of the Ghana Integrity Initiative, the local chapter of Transparency International. Zapiakubi, so you see, it comes back to the sanctioning regime that leadership must take. So, for instance, John Rikitegan was talking about what leadership should be doing, say, if you have, in cases of evidence. I bring you in because you're a legal practitioner, also a member of parliament. Yeah. We've had instances where, after the president's charge, when he took office as president, that he's going to employ, for instance, the Anas style to fight corruption. So Anas has done a number of exposés. It goes to court. Other investigative journalists have done their bit as well as a way of contributing to this fight against corruption. And then the response is that, you know what, I mean, there's no evidence. How, at least in the spirit of the fight against corruption, could we have at least addressed such instances differently and giving a lot more attention to what journalists are able to uncover through investigations by leadership to help in the fight?
My brother, first and foremost, let me respond to the former director's submissions. Mm-hmm. Indeed, the subject matter for discussion today is corruption, which is part of crime. But when you mix the whole elements of crime in the discussion of corruption, then you deviate. He raised issues of constitutionalism. It is not on discussion today. Much as I agree that the constitution needs review, that is not the subject matter, and that has nothing to do with corruption. So I implore all of us to focus on the subject matter for today, which is corruption, and let us not digress and deviate and bring in red herrings.
If I get the understanding, the reference he made was that some of the clauses or provisions of the Constitution creates a fertile ground for corruption. That you wouldn't agree?
Well, corruption is when you do something illegally. When there is a law that says A, B, C, D, and you follow that A, B, C, D, you are not doing anything towards the law. You are not doing anything against the law. So it is in one realm of law, constitutionalism. If our constitution is deficient of expectations, let's fix it. That's constitution. Mm-hmm. If the laws of the state are being infringed upon, let's deal with it. But today you have selected corruption as one element of law in criminal law. So let's discuss it. Otherwise, we bring in so many things, we dilute the subject matter. And let me take the issue you have raised. Now, like I said before, we have enough legislation to deal with corruption. You were also talking about evidence. Yes, it is the case that you need to support your charges with evidence. Otherwise, you cannot achieve conviction. And you see, the law is also that if some person is denied his freedom and he is denied justice, it is better to let 10 people go rather than keeping one person who is innocent in custody. You understand? So we need to support our charges with evidence. That's why we cannot run away from it. But there are also cases where people who find the evidence, compromise the evidence for also corruption in his investigations.
I see. What do you mean exactly?
Let's take some of these exposés, and I have been part of one of them, and I knew how they started it. I knew the process they followed. I knew the strategies. But before the person was even commissioned to undertake the investigation, the results was given to him. Make sure that person comes under your scrutiny.
So it was a premeditated.
Yeah, premeditated, instruction. And in the case of the judges, that is what I'm saying. One of the judges that I knew, I had information that judge would be investigated. I had the prior information. So the selection of the people were not even at random. You say, go investigate this person. And you go there pre-motivated to convict him. So you go and put one bunch of money. You say, oh, no, take it. Then you record the scene of putting the money there, and you don't record the scene of rejecting the money. And you use that as your evidence to convict. That is not also fair. So the person who is commissioned to do the investigation,
that is criminal.
Yeah, it's criminal. And in most cases, but I'm happy that some of the judges who were also convicted of having taken bribes and punished, they themselves also know that some of their own colleagues were mistreated. And you see, so when you are doing something, you want to find the evidence, make sure you find the total evidence that can support your case. But not you yourself go there with a premeditated mind to go and seek conviction for one and seek to... One of the judges who was also given kudos, he had prior information that they were coming to him.
I see.
Yes, that they are going to investigate you.
In the judge's explanation.
Yes, they are going to investigate you. So we are sending somebody to you this time. So he goes there and he comes out clean. Me, I won't take. I didn't take. What kind of joke is that?
Because of the prime information that the person...
And I'm saying that I knew that one person that I know who refused the motivation and came out with chest out, he knew that they were coming to him.
So after...
So he had the script.
Yes.
He knew that
he had the script.
And he came out saying that he didn't take...
I didn't take and all that. But he knew that they were coming to him. And it was pre-arranged.
He had the script, so he had read
Even
the
at the
script and
commission.
memorized it.
You understand? So we can't be like that and be blaming others. So what it is that if you are, and again, one day in Parliament, I think I made a mention of this, we must criminalize professional negligence.
Professional negligence.
Professional negligence.
That's what you're prevailing on Parliament to do, or making a proposal.
Yes, I made a proposal there. You see, you find very fine engineers in Ghana. Most of our roads, we fix them in 2 years, they are gone. And you will see a respected engineer certifying a certificate for payment. He may not even have gone to the site to do the inspection, yet he okays a certificate for payment. And then that person, when we talk of corruption, he will also be talking corruption. But he will be the most corrupt person on earth. But he will be... So we are blaming each other, but we don't have commitment to tackle the issue head on. So what I'm suggesting is that people who are charged of corruption, let us go to the charge with the necessary evidence. When you are convicted, let us exact the necessary punishment so that it will serve as a deterrent. But let us not talk corruption every day and not do anything about it. For now, what I feel and see is that we are too happy to talk about corruption, but we are not happy to follow even the process of prosecuting allegations of corruption. Once we discuss it here, we all go to sleep. Once they mention my brother, I follow him, and I want to see whoever is connected with the investigation to suppress evidence. Are we going anywhere? But it is only corruption that is frustrating development of Africa as a whole. Corruption alone takes the greater part of GDP every year, and it is ongoing. It is something some people will say it is endemic. So if it's endemic, then it cannot be removed. It cannot be treated. We cannot say that it is endemic. It is a canker that ought to be attacked and removed. And like my brother was saying, it takes leadership to do it. Because if I do it as a person and I have support of somebody who will protect me, what is the motivation on that person investigating me to even continue? Because at the end of the day, it will end up on somebody's desk. So and one sentence will destroy the whole evidence and the whole work, the whole investigation. And sometimes, you see, I was in court a few days ago. What I saw, I didn't like it at all. And there is, you see, it's difficult to come out to say, but trust me, in my case, I have opened my eyes.
You open your eyes. There's something going on in there.
Yes, I have opened my eyes. So I need 2 months. Let's see what will happen, because these are very vulnerable people before seeking justice. I have followed their cause for 9 years.
Wow.
Sometimes paying from my pocket to support them. We come to the end of it. The law must speak. Trust me, the law will speak.
Very interesting detail. Mr. Bona, I bring you this point. You talk about leadership and the impact of what we've seen. I'll come back to the sanctioning regime because it's extremely important, and then also comments made by leadership, which also must be taken into at least some consideration if we are talking about the role leadership plays in the fight against corruption. But permit me, let's show you this. This is something that I put together with just a simple Google search. If you do, you will see the rankings of the Ghana Police Service in previous surveys. I go back to 2010. Okay, see, in 2010, the Global Corruption Barometer, the police was ranked number 1, most corrupt. 2011, the same number 1. 2012, number 1.
Oh,
2013, number 1.
Consistent.
And guess what? I changed the survey search, and Afrobarometer survey 2014 ranked the police number 1. 2015, socio-economic and governance survey also ranked police number 1. This was conducted by the IEA. Now, let's go to 2017. The Corruption Perception Index 2016 as well ranked police number 1 in that same year. 2017, Afrobarometer survey all the way to 2020, they've been number 1. That unenviable position of being ranked number 1 in corrupt institutions.
They've been consistent.
They've been consistent. Yeah. Quite unfortunately. Mr. Bona.
Well, I think there should be an explanation to this. If you ask me, first of all, they are law enforcement agency. Whereas you go to the doctor's, consulting room, the doctor tells you, I need you to, maybe the doctor wants to take some money from you. You can actually refuse and probably go to the next hospital or clinic to seek treatment where probably it's going to be free. When a police officer tells you, I have arrested you, you don't have the chance of saying that, I want to go to the next police station to be arrested. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you get what I'm trying to say. You don't have the opportunity to say, he says, I have arrested you. And so we need to probably look at it from that point. So he says, you jumped traffic, or I saw you slapped somebody. I've been asked to bring you. You don't have the opportunity to say, I'm going to the next police station. He must send you there. So at that point, you are either going to follow the police officer, or if it's a very corrupt police officer who arrived there, you give money, he will take and tell you, when you have time, come. I don't know if you get what I'm trying to say. So these are the things that have crept into why we consistently have seen the police being number 1. But if you look at the quantum is very important. Mm-hmm. Somebody, will get into some act of criminality in terms of corruption, take $1 million, and probably the entire region, police region, what they take might not be up to. Like he cited the example of an engineer who is supervising a road construction. Very recently, the road minister, the hard-hitting road minister, was in the Ashanti region, and you heard him sermon, I think the Ashanti region, one of the engineers who was supervising a bridge somewhere, asking him to see him in Accra because apparently the work hadn't been done, but it looks like something had taken place and the bridge had been washed away. If you ask the Honorable MP here, I've met him in some meetings where he came to complain about some projects that were supposed to have been paid for and the contractor hasn't done it. And the engineer has signed it. This is an act of corruption. Is there? You can ask him.
Engineer signed the...
Yes. The engineer signed it.
What have not been done?
And I was there when he came to do the complaints. I was sitting in that meeting when he came to do. So these and when you
after my complaint, nothing happened.
Okay, so my point is that you see, you look at, let's say a kilometer of an asphalted road would cost probably anything around 2 million cedis, two close to 3 million cedis, depending on how this the soil is. And so if you have a very corrupt engineer who decides not to supervise this road well, and the road is not done well, a year, 2 years, the road is washed away, and government has paid. And so as far as I'm concerned, I would want us to look at, whilst looking at who is probably consistently on top, let's look at the quantum, how much is leaking.
So Mr.
For the
Azim thought
police,
that
I'm
the
coming.
quantum is not...
No, the quantum is important, but mine is that the reason why I think it's important to deal with the police and the other security agencies issue has to do with the fact that in most societies where you have the police probably being so disciplined they don't take bribe, issues of corruption reduces. So for instance, if you were the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, who is exiting, and you did a certain party that you were not supposed to, the police would investigate you because the law says so.
They've been empowered, motivated.
They've been empowered and motivated to do that. And so I say that if you go to, whereas you go to, let's say, a place like Britain, they will say, independent police. Over here, we have service with integrity, but no independence. And so mine is that you commit a crime, you are arrested, a certain big man sitting somewhere calls to say, where do I makwara munjano? That itself is a crime. And so I want to see, and this, the Vice President's digitization agenda is going to take some time. But mine is that, Alfred, mine is that I think the rate, the speed at which we are moving, hopefully we are going to get to a point where it is going to kick in and, help us. I want to see a situation where, and we have created a society where it is easy to be corrupt. And I have said this, the reason why I would want to give the police, or an individual want to give the police money, would be because, you see, some of the laws, the punitive measures don't make sense. If you make a law that doesn't make sense, chances 99% of the time, the law would be flouted, it would be broken.
Give me an example.
An example is, a police officer arrests me for simple traffic offense. Let's say jumping red lights.
That's an offense.
That's an offense. But that is probably, it becomes criminal when certain things, so he would arrest me, takes me to, it's a misdemeanor, he takes me to court. In other places, the first option is for you to pay a sport fine. So for instance, if I was to, if you say, oh, you've jumped red lights, you ask me to pay a sport fine, he's holding a digital device where he scans it and he takes my 100 CDs there and there. Chances are that for me, I would not pay that police officer 50 CDs or 100 CDs. I would pay and that would go to the state, but I would have learned a lesson.
So,
but where he arrests me and he threatens me with courts, he takes me to court and he knows. The judiciary itself is another place where probably corruption emanates from. Because then he takes you to court, adjournment. One simple case will take forever to finish.
The wheels of justice.
Thank you. But my point is that for a simple traffic offense, why do I have to be sort of us having a law? So you end up being asked to pay 600 Ghana cedis. 600 Ghana cedis for that simple traffic offense. So Charles, the police officer will tell you that I'm going to process you for court. First of all, you are running to work or you are busy running around. And you say, okay, you dip your hands. Even if he doesn't want to take the money, you put the money, you give him the money. So I want us to get to a situation in this country where, just like Britain and other places, the police becomes a cash cow. When I say they become a cash cow, listen, let's say you have 50,000 Ghanaians who are flouting road traffic regulations, and everyone is paying 100 Ghana cedis sport fine. Calculate that and just upload that to, how much the police needs every year as budgetary allocation. In other places, I think 2017, I need to check the Britain police, the Metropolitan, the police got more than $1 billion in terms of fines.
What fines?
More than $1 billion. Over here, if you check, I mean, people flout the law, and this money that are supposed to probably go to the state, we pay because we haven't put in the structure to get these things done. And so mine is that, Alfred, if you create a chaotic situation, I mean, I must part the passport office. I mean, recently I was there. It took me, 48 hours I got mine. And the license office, these are institutions that I think that, but education is very important. Most people don't have that education. Probably is the reason why the DVLA and the passport office maybe would be captured. Because most people still believe that until someone takes money from me and processes my passport or my driving license, the driving license will never come. Meanwhile, they have their premium office at the 37 area. You go through there, I think even if you want a cup of tea, they give it to you. Passport office have done the same. So I want to see the police. Let's ask the police to go for a loan of $1 billion in their own name and give them time to pay, to retool themselves, have body cameras. So I'm having an interaction with the police. He stops me, right? I am communicating with him. He tells you I've broken the law. There's evidence that I've broken the law. I pay the fine and I go. Once these things are done, we are going to take the police away from government subventions because they will get enough money.
So you said some two extremely important things. So even though the police is supposed to be rendering service with integrity, the lack of independence of the police impacts on their integrity.
Yes.
So much that they are caught in these things. So you're making a recommendation that they should be now charged with the responsibility of raising revenue through the punishment of crime committed, so that they will be at least financially independent of the state. And for instance, you amend that part of the constitution that the president has to appoint the IGP, so that there's real independence in the true sense of the word, before we'll see something drastic being done about the police.
So long as the president consistently, but well, the good thing is that he's appointed an IGP who is very independent, you know.
How
so
independent is
if I say very, no, let me be. I mean, who is independent in a way? Because then I'm sure some members of parliament themselves have been processed for various traffic offences. In the past, you will not see that. And so mine is that tomorrow he's not there. Somebody else comes. That person will not have the balls to be able to probably arrest an MP or a police. You saw what happened in Takoradi somewhere, where an MCE went on ranting, and he's in court. And we have had series of them. But my point is that until such a time that we make some of these institutions very independent. You see Shraj, the current boss of Shraj, he was there during former John Mahama's time, and the new President Nana Akufo-Addo came, and he's still there because it's an independent institution. You cannot touch him unless you find something so damning, even that it goes through a process. But if you have an IGP, today somebody else comes and, you know, he has to come and greet you, and when he's coming, he's giving you his resignation letter, and you have sometimes some government appointees who are so arrogant to the extent that they would even call an IGP and attempt to, intimidate him, depending on who you are. And so mine is that service with integrity, there is something missing, which is independence. We need them to be independent. But like I'm saying, with this digitization, I hope that probably by next year, if we can have them begin to, whilst we are advocating for their getting independence for them, we begin to get them go on the field, and they have machines to charge you sport fine. And that would accumulate to that officer. In other places, like Britain, I mean, I'll use it because I lived there some time ago.
Right.
The guy is sent out there and he's told to catch people, maybe 1,000 people a year.
In fact, that is actually being done here, but then the money doesn't go to the state. So, you know, since you've worked with the police for quite a while, there are some of these officers who are sent onto the road either with a motorbike or sent to the checkpoints, and they are giving a target to bring and come and render accounts to their senior officers. So there is, but this one is
that one I didn't say it.
No, but you know it.
Yes,
you know,
but I
mean,
didn't
this is
say
open
it.
secret.
Yeah, but that is true. So what I'm saying is that if the officer knows at the end of the year what the arrest or the arrest that came through me and the payment that were made, maybe I helped the state or the police to raise, let's say, 1 million cedis, and probably 1% comes to me. And apart from that, that affects my promotion, because then I have my KPIs. My KPIs includes A, B, C, D, S, Y, Z. You are going to see most police officers. You give him money, he will not take it. He would, because he knows at the end of the year, if I got 1 million and 1% is coming to me, why would I go and get myself involved in?
But if we are not careful, that will become motivation for him also to do what is wrong.
No, what I'm saying is that, so you arm them with body cameras. You arm them, once you arm him with a body camera, chances are that if you disagree with him, you can decide to say, you know what, I want to elevate it to the next level.
Right. So
that they'll review the camera and see who was right and who was wrong.
Great.
So that the idea of motivating him to, because sometimes you are driving in the street of London, a police officer arrests you, you can see this thing there, it doesn't really make sense, but the guy has arrested you, and it gives you a ticket. You go and pay. If you don't pay, the next thing you see is that there's a warrant for your arrest. The next thing they catch you, you have to take you to court. You lose your people. Even in this country, people have gotten into various accidents and they still have their full license. So let's make it punitive for people to be corrupt and for people to take bribes.
Punitive and the sanctions regime is what has been quite prominent and consistent in this conversation we've been having so far, so that even the promises to retool or improve the police logistics would not be the burden of government, Mr. Bonanza, that's what you're saying. So then these policies are put in place for them to improve on their internally generated funds to fund the buying of their own body cameras and so on and so forth. But this is key point. Let me just remind you that we are proudly sponsored by Niche Chocolate Drink. You should go into a shop and buy one and enjoy it, because my guests here are enjoying it, and they will share the experience. Yes, Ghana made. This is the taste of Ghana. What you're going to be drinking in there is all Ghana cocoa, Niche chocolate. It comes in the 180 ml Tetra packs, and then also what you have here with the 250 ml small bottles as well. So go in there and grab it, enjoy it, share the experience with me, because it's something that we vouch for. We know that we know it's nutritious and it's healthy for you. Mr. Hagen, so in the midst of everything, with all the proposals that have come in, the police cannot go out of their way to do anything. It still comes back to leadership. I mean, that's what the point you've been making consistently. Sure. If there is the lack of commitment to fight corruption, because I'm sure even our viewers and listeners on 3FM 92.7 will say, we've been talking about this for so long. Every year, the cancer keeps getting deeper and worsening. The cancer is spreading. And now we are saying it is endemic. It is a systemic situation. So what do we do?
Well, when you look at it, as I said earlier, it is endemic. It's endemic in a sense that it's become so regularized that people get into act of corruption without even knowing that what they are doing is actually corruption. Because the very people who commit or get into the act of corruption are also the same. We're all Ghanaians, and pretty much corruption is pretty much everywhere. Yet you get us, some of us, talking about corruption. And the very people who are talking about corruption are corrupt themselves. And they engage in corruption, acts of corruption, without even, it's become second in nature. That giving you money to do something is probably, you mentioned something quite interesting about an age bracket where corruption seems to be. And then you ask yourself,
25 to 34 years tops, 35 to 49 comes second. The second most vulnerable group to bribe or pay bribe.
So if you are going to get yourself to understand the whole corruption, what is going on there, and to be able to deal with it, you've got to ask yourself why this, age bracket, you realize that, well, it's to do with time. As my brother said, that the process of going to court and all that, look, when a policeman arrests you, two things. You will either waste his time or he will waste your time. Okay? He's not ready to waste his time by leaving his post where many more will come and take you to the police station. You are going somewhere, you don't have the time to go to the police station and go to court and get all this, So let's settle the matter here. And to settle the matter here, and the police knows, is, give them something. Right. One thing that he said, which I think is quite important, is probably that if we are going down this digital route, then probably this body cameras and all that becomes quite important. What I want to be careful with is not to get down the road where the police becomes a revenue-generating agency, and they lose the focus on the actual policing. Because if you give them a target to bring a certain amount of money in as an incentive that at the end of the year they will get a bonus, they will begin to abuse the law and do things that will, maybe the body cameras, if they have it, maybe will help. But that becomes a dangerous. Their job is to police, and we should focus on things that equip them in such a way that they will be able to do that. If in the process of that, there is an sort of IJFs being they got it out of that, then that's great. But if you now focus on the police being able to bring a certain revenue, and they are doing that already on the road at the moment. It goes to their pocket.
So don't break the law. My point is that, Honorable, don't break the law. Don't break the law.
I think the whole idea is to make the sanctioning regime punitive, so as to, in fact, we should criminalize corruption so that it even can contribute to revenue generation.
Yes, it should be monetized.
What is
implementation of it
should be monetized for me.
What is lacking at the moment, with all these machines we are putting in place and everything, what is lacking, and I feel I go back to it again, is leadership. There has to be some form of deterrent. People should be deterred not to be corrupt.
And the example must be seen from the top.
The example must be seen from the top. There are so many rumors, whether it's true or not, you never know, of politicians, look, police are on top of the corruption food chain because they are also number one, or they are in front of when it comes to the public service itself. But what is happening in the police is no different from what is happening in public institutions, except that the police are looked differently because of the kind of interaction that they have with the public.
Indeed.
But this is pretty much happening everywhere. And as I said, we are doing things that we no longer know that, is corruption. Look, right now, people do things for you. Every service that you get, somebody thinks they should receive something, and you think you should give people something. It's not a thank you anymore.
Even if you don't give, you don't feel good.
Yeah, you don't feel good. You are not normal if you don't. Somebody opens a gate for you to a place that he's at the gate as a security man. You go through the gate, and the security man expects that you give them something. And then you feel like you should give them something.
Yeah.
There's a certain sense of entitlement.
Yes, the whole system is a mess. And endemic can be cured. Just like cancer can be cured.
It ought to be cured.
There's somebody saying that corruption is at a pandemic stage. In this
it's probably gone beyond pandemic.
What is
pandemic,
it?
But if we get the leadership right,
what is the vaccine for the corruption pandemic?
Absolutely. If you get the leadership right,
the vaccine is enforcement of the laws.
Of the laws, that's it.
I don't want to
monetize it.
I don't want to go through. We are in a democracy now. We don't want to go to any other forms of government and all that. But when you look back, whether they were right or wrong, not only in Ghana, but places where sort of something happens and then there is either a public or a military intervention or
They
whatever.
themselves got more corrupted.
Oh,
than
yes.
You
themselves-
realize that
Very
from the
bad-
beginning.
Very bad example.
No, hold
Those
on.
people
No,
got
let
more
me-
corrupted than
You don't
those
know
who
what
were
you don't know
accused
what
of
I'm going to
corruption.
say, so you can't say it's a bad example.
Very bad example.
So hold on to hear what I'm saying, since I'm the one who has come out with this. Okay, you look at a situation where
Somebody says ECG, he's surprised ECG is not on the
a
list.
government takes, military government, or that's happened in other places, takes over. When they come, usually military coups are, the reason for military coups is that the government that they have actually removed is corrupt.
Yes, but they end up getting
Okay.
more.
Oh, yeah,
So
more corrupt.
let's honorable. I'm not
you
going
just
down that
wanna
route. I'm just,
if you make the
So
point.
so basically, what happens is that they come in and they pretend to be doing something different from the government that they remove. In the early days or the first few months or years, most military government or most other alternative government seems to be the best in the sense that they come to give the impression that, look, we are coming to cure this corruption, this, that. In the end, like he's saying, they become more corrupt than the ones that they
Oh,
remove.
yes.
So it tells
Oh,
you,
yes.
it tells you that, and I'm
They are
taking,
worse.
if you take the few months or the few years, you realize that leadership is actually the problem. They pretend to offer that leadership to clean the system of corruption, but they are not able to sustain it, and they themselves become more corrupt. So it tells you that if we are actually to get leaders who will show, as I said, this special prosecution, everyone was expecting. And as Nana said, the president talked the talk, but he didn't walk the walk. So everybody now looks at, well, he said he was going to clean up corruption. That didn't happen. So we are back to the same or even worse. So if you don't get the leadership, it doesn't matter what systems you put in place. And the leadership is not only coming from the president, but the leadership down, to even the institution, the heads of the institutions. If we show that we are prepared to deal with corruption, and there's actually a deterrent, and that's why I use the military one, because the kind of stuff when they come in, they do, will make you think that, hey, if I do this, if I do that, if you lived in the 70s and the 80s, the sort of things that happened to people that were perceived to be corrupt will itself deter you from attempting to do same. But then in the end, it gets turned upside down and they become worse than. So if we don't get the leadership right, it doesn't really matter what we do. If we don't show the way that we are really prepared to deal with corruption, and if we ourselves don't lead by example, and then you hear all sorts of things being done, the level of corruption that goes on in government, the recklessness in government expenditure and all that, these are all corrupt. Projects that are inflated, we built, like 5 hospitals with money that could probably build 10 or 15 hospitals and all that. So these are the impact of corruption on the economy. Probably would have been
cost
can
build 6.
We would have
Building small pieces.
added some improvement. So until those things are done, I am not convinced that whatever systems you put in place, as we said earlier on, you can go to an office and the computer systems are not working. Itself is an act of corruption.
And the moment you pay, it begins to work.
Look, you go to
Wait a minute. And the pain is that even when we investigate and see the corruption, corrupted people get away with the booty. Look at cycle interchange.
So, you see, and that's just going to round up our conversation on this one.
Let's
on this
look
one.
at present.
On this one.
What is
because there are
happening?
so many references that you can
Let's
have.
look
For
at
instance,
all of them.
with what
And bring them
happened with
to
the
book.
Public Procurement Authority boss and so on and so forth. But the question is that, and we'll run up this right after this quick break, that if the president make the statement and commitment that, look, I'm going to use the announced principle to fight corruption,
And nothing happens.
and then when he wins power, nothing is done in that process to fulfill that promise. Citizens are raising questions about that. This is key points. I have 2 members of parliament on both sides of the house, and I have a security analyst in studio. I have your messages as well. I'll read them and round up this conversation, and we'll move into the next, which is the $750 million loan that has been approved and the $250 million component that has not been approved yet. The minority is raising questions about it. We'll talk about it and why you should be concerned, because it is a loan and you and I are going to pay for it. Stay with us. We'll be back shortly. Welcome back. This is Key Point on TV3. We're live on TV3 Ghana on Facebook, DSTV channel 279, all across the world on 3news.com. Also live on 3FM 92.7. And the many of you who are sending us messages on 3FM 92.7, duly acknowledged and thank you so much. And we'll go into the messages now and dovetail into our next conversation for the morning. But let me still remind you that the Honorable Kwame Appiah-Kubi is a member of parliament for the Asante Achims North constituency. Also is a private legal practitioner. And the Honorable Rickett Hagan is the former deputy finance minister, member of parliament for Cape Coast South. And in our next conversation, we'll have another guest joining us, but Dr. Adam Bona, a security analyst, was with us earlier. Your messages now. This one here says, good morning, Alfred. If Dr. Baumia prefers Ghana card to 1,000 changes, then he can drive his convoy on the Ghana card. By the way, don't the people of Swami have Ghana cards, and why are they demonstrating? You say, this is Stephen from Kwabenya. Stephen, thank you, because you're talking about the next issues that we're going to be talking about as well. Kweku from La Paz says, good morning, Alfred. The only way we can reduce bribe is jail some of the top government officials engaged in corruption as a deterrent. You say, says, for as long as politicians and leaders engaged in corruption are not punished, it will never serve as any example or deterrent for others who are below the ladder of society. You say, and I agree with all your guests, leadership is everything. Daniel Akpaliok from Sandema says, the level with which the Ghana police exhibit unprofessional conduct in the discharge of their duties is so alarming. It's worrying that the police service has in recent times resorted to humiliate and brutalize the very citizens they are mandated to protect. They're extorting money with careless abundance and verbally humiliating people on our roads. The IGP needs to come to Upper East here to see things for himself. They stopped me last month and demanded I pay 30 Ghana cedis or they will impound my motorbike. Aaron from Tamale North. Good morning, Alfred. When you have a government who is promising to fight corruption and does not do so, definitely the people who are watching will not be motivated enough to also shy away from the acts of corruption. And good morning, Alfred, and to your guest. Please ask the NPP so you're talking about the education minister, why they have left the newly posted teachers 2022 stranded. That's another, it's an issue, to be honest. And thank you for bringing our attention to this. We will definitely get into it. It says, good morning, Alfred. And to all your panelists, especially to Kweku Rickett Hagan. Are you surprised that the police is ranked number 1 as most corrupt institution? I knew you are not surprised, and I am not surprised too. That's coming from Kotoka Courage in Angloga, Lashibi in the Volta region. And this one here says that corruption has been part of us since the days of Gold Coast. The police being on top of the table means drivers are also corrupt. Both the giver and the receiver are corrupt. I am very happy GES is not part of that. And teachers. This one here says that, good morning, Alfred. I was stopped by the police at a Shaiman on my own private motorbike to work. And what they could tell me is that I am using one-way lane, meaning while I was just from the Total filling station from the China Mall. I told the officer who stopped me that I am going to pick up a work from a client, but I am not going to cross the motorway. And the police officer told me to pay 500 cedis before they can allow me to go. And I told him I can't get them such amount of money and they said they will take me and other riders to the station. And on our way, they stopped at a certain corner, asked us to talking to them one after the other so that we can bargain the said 500 they are asking for. Bargaining a bribe, you say. I got there, person left with my money that I was supposed to give to my boss, you say. Really, really sorry about this. This one here says from Joe from La Paz. It says that an example of leadership failure is fighting corruption is a health minister, Ajimamenu, and the matters relating to the breach and the procurement laws in Sputnik V vaccine saga. Your two members of parliament were in the House. Please, can they also tell us how that issue ended and if we could have done something different to at least serve as a deterrent? Instead of being prosecuted, there are people who use the law to escape punishment, you say. Good morning. By now, every reasonable Ghanaian must be tired of, you say, MPP after several years of mediocre government, and the fight against corruption must be fought head on. This one here says, NPP and NDC have in themselves not done the Ghanaian people any good in the fight against corruption. That is why we must not, in your view, rely on them to fight corruption in any way. Alhaji Haruna Ashaiman says, Alfred, corruption can never be eradicated in Ghana. We will only make noise, and that will be the end. It has already become a cancer amongst us since independence. There's a question that finally will round this up. Says, I want to find out from the lawyer in the studio, who's also a member of parliament, if it is right that as a government, you say, and going back to your question, that if the president makes a comment and the promise to the Ghanaian people to fight corruption with the announced principle, why are we not saying so and would rather raise questions when allegations are made with some level of evidence, you say? In a minute, Honorable Apiokobi, if you just answer this for me, we'll go into the next conversation, please.
What is the question?
On the statement or the promise by the president to use the announced principle to fight corruption, but he is not doing so, or will raise questions when allegations with some level of evidence is made to him, and rather ask for evidence because of the statement that he made that he would fight corruption using the said principle. That's what a number of the texters are asking.
Investigation has its own dimensions. I really don't understand what he means by announced principle because I myself...
Well, that's what the president said.
Yes, but I don't understand. He said it. But I myself, even this morning, I have done a critique of the strategy of ANAS, and I have given examples of how I think ANAS didn't, use the integrity of his so-called principle. I have challenged it this morning. Mm-hmm. So I don't think that there is a special principle to investigate that is referred to as ANAS principle. We have investigation principles that are there and time-tested that ought to be followed. But granted that that person understood that ANAS so-called principle as something else of doing some kind of investigation. You see, if you are going to investigate somebody and you are going to attempt to attract him into crime, that is not right. That you motivate him into crime and use that template as in fashioning your results. That is not correct.
Right.
So let us see more aggressive investigation, more authentic investigation, more time-tested methods of investigation, and provide the results thereof, and use the results in prosecution, and make sure that prosecution ends properly with a decision of a court and the implementation of the decision of the court. There we can see that we have a system that's sustainable. But I'm not sure that anybody can coin any form of investigation and want to, professionalize it or make it national. No, we have time-tested institutions which are capable. But let us resource such institutions to do the good work. And after they have done the good work, like what they publish, let us go into the merits of it and then see through prosecution and make sure that conviction or otherwise is implemented.
Well, that's the normal and the Kwame Appiah Kubi, the NPP MP for the Asante Achim North constituency. He's a lawyer.